This story begins deep in the wild. A lion cub's desperate cry cuts through the savannah air, echoing like a call for help no one can ignore. In this unforgiving land, survival is never guaranteed. So before we dive in, take a moment to like this video, and if this story touches your heart, subscribe to Heroic Rescue Tales. Together, we'll keep the spirit of compassion alive, one rescue at a time. Comment below your favorite animal. You hear it again. A thin, ragged yowl, then another, overlapping like two notes from a frayed instrument. The dawn is still young, peach light skimming the plains, but your pulse leaps as you find them. Two lion cubs pressed belly flat beneath a wind-bent acacia. They can't be more than 6 or 7 weeks old. Fur still fuzzy, spots faint along their flanks like ghosted constellations. Their eyes, wide, amber, searching, keep hunting the horizon where their mother should be. Instead, the only movement is the ripple of tall grass and the rough geometry of paw prints that end in confusion, as if the night itself swallowed the trail. You steady your breath. Somewhere out there, their pride will soon return. That truth must be the thread you cling to. If the morning grants you that mercy, then the wind shifts, and with it comes a scent that isn't mercy. It's musk and dust and a copper edge of hunger. You know the pattern. Wild dogs, also called African painted dogs, move like river water, fluid, synchronized, silent until the kill. They're master cooperators. Biologists note success rates far higher than most big cats. You scan the grass. A tail flickers, a rounded ear tilts. 15, maybe more. The cubs huddle tighter, emitting those staccato chirps lion mothers learn to pick out of 1,000 sounds. But today, the cubs' calls paint a target. You move your foot and the cubs flinch, pressing deeper into shade. They're dehydrated. You can tell by the way their tongues linger out, the way their ribs edge the fur. A cub this young needs milk every few hours. Without it, body temperature dips, energy collapses. You remember what the old ranger said? In the wild, timing is everything. Be late by a heartbeat, you lose a lifetime. A dry crackle bursts from your radio. Interference first, then a voice you know. Field station to units. Unidentified distress calls near Acacia Bend. Possible cub separation. Malik and Tessa are rolling. You exhale, not relief exactly, but the shape of it. Help is coming. You crouch lower, whispering steady air through your teeth, trying to be rock, trying to be tree, trying to be anything except threat. Another cry. The grass to your left trembles. Sun finds the paint on a muzzle, ochre, black, white. The wild dog's camouflage, beautiful and terrible. The pack fans out, each body a brushstroke in a living net. One dog, larger, scar stitched over an eye, takes point. The cubs shrink so low their bellies gather dust. You place one hand over your chest to quiet the thunder there. Around you, the savannah seems to hold its breath, the way an audience does before an orchestra's strike. Something is about to happen. You can feel it in your bones, the way the planet hums before a storm. Far off, like a drum from another world, a single roar trembles across the flats. The cubs lift their heads at once, hope rethreaded, eyes lit like flint. You stand into the sound, listening, praying, because if that roar belongs to who you think it does, everything about this morning will change, and fast. But the wild dogs are already moving to close the circle. And in the tall grass, something else stirs. The rope of sound, low, rolling, sovereign, fades into the grass waves, and what remains is motion. The pack's lead hunter inches forward, head low, shoulders buoyant, gait elastic. You track the rhythm, 1, 2, 3, the subtle handoff as flanking dogs take angles you'd need a map to draw. Painted dogs seldom rush alone. They test, draw, probe, and then flood. They're endurance hunters, able to run for miles at a steady clip, tongues lolling like sails. Against grown antelope, this tactic is devastating. Against lion cubs, it's a knife too sharp for the scabbard. You force yourself to observe, not flail. Each cub weighs maybe 5 kilos. Their claws lack the anchor of an adult's. Their baby teeth, needle-fine, can't make a dog reconsider. Instinct says crouch and hush. Evolution whispers stillness is survival. But instinct doesn't know circles. The dogs widen theirs, a woven ring of intent, focusing attention, splitting air with small, eager whines. One cub, bolder, perhaps older by a day, tries to stand taller and falls back on its haunches, then clambers between its sibling and the closest shadow. Your throat tightens at the tiny courage. Static again, then wheels on gravel. You glance back to a blur of dust and the flash of a bull bar, Malik's truck. He's standing in the bed before it stops, binoculars to eyes, a second shape beside him. Tessa, lean and calm as a cooled blade, scanning, counting. They don't shout. Good. Noise can scatter a pack in the wrong direction, straight through the cubs. Instead, Malik taps the cab roof twice, then points. West edge, keep the sun at their backs. The dogs freeze as engines die. Heads swivel, ears triangulate. One steps forward, then back as if on a string. You slide your gaze to the right edge, movement there too. There's always a second plan inside the first plan. You remember a fact you read last season. Painted dogs use a sneeze-like call to vote on whether to start a hunt. The number of sneezes can decide the pack's commitment. You hear it now, brief, breathy exhalations, democracy with teeth. Tessa raises a hand. You still. She motions, wait for the wind to shift again. It does, south to north, lifting your scent away. Malik slides a long baton from the truck bed. Not a weapon so much as a boundary maker, something to claim space without blood. He steps into the grass in a low arc, a shepherd carving a path the dogs might prefer to follow away, if they choose. Because out here, choice is a river that doesn't always run where you want. The nearest dog faints testing. Behind it another drifts, searching for the weak seam. The cubs flatten. Your heart begs for the next roar, the one that would turn this whole equation upside down. It comes closer, heavier, braided with a second voice. You can almost feel the ground answer. The lead dog flicks an ear, torn between two calculations. Stay with the easy meal or avoid the cost of a lion's fury. A hush like snow settles over the heat. Malik angles right. Tessa moves left, a pincer of presence, narrowing lanes. The dogs look beyond you now, into the rolling dust where the sun seems to darken. You swallow. If the mother is truly near, her window is the smallest thing on earth. Seconds. The pack feels it too. They turn as one, hesitation, hunger, fear, an algorithm rewriting mid-run. But then a shadow detaches from the dust, and your skin prickles as the horizon resolves into muscle and mane. The equation is about to change, and not gently. They say the savannah is a book written in tracks and echoes. You watch as its sentences curl into urgency. The figure surging through dust isn't just one lion, it's two. A gaunt lioness with a torn shoulder, and behind her a younger male from the pride, mane just budding, eyes iron dark. The mother is wind and fury. The subadult is her shadow, a reluctant storm, forced into shape by family. Cubs squeal, high, bright notes that spiral straight into the lioness's chest. She answers with a roar that peels paint off fear. Malik lowers his baton and steps wider, signaling Tessa to hold. Let her do it, he murmurs into the radio. We're backup, not front line. His voice is steady, but his knuckles are pale. You know why. Lions can break a dog with one strike, but dogs are geometry. They flow, split, return. Collisions multiply risk. The first crash is sound more than sight. A thud, a yelp, bodies exploding into arcs of grass and dust. The lioness hits the ring like a hammer through wicker. One dog cartwheels away, scrambling to its feet, tail tucked. The subadult slices across the opposite flank, herding rather than killing, a tactic adult males rarely choose. He's growing into his role, you think, a fact that catches you off guard with its quiet pride. Scientists note that subadults often learn by shadowing females. Today's lesson is engraved in panic and grit. Your breath goes ragged. The pack regroups with jaw clatters and chirps, undecided. Painted dogs avoid wasting energy. An injured lioness is tempting, but a lioness cornered by love is lethal. The leader with the scar crouches, gauges the angle to the bolder cub, then shifts focus, not to the cub, but to the lioness's wounded shoulder. Predators read weakness like script. Tessa's radio scratch. Dr. Imani on standby. 15 minutes out with the mobile clinic. Good. If the lioness takes a deeper wound, that window will be thin. You sweep your eyes across the cubs. The bolder one stands, trembling, trying to make itself big. The smaller presses into its sibling's hip, eyes half closed, as if the world is too bright. The subadult charges, snapping over a dog's back, herding the pack into a knot. The lioness plants herself between dogs and cubs, head low, muscles bunching. For a beat, time pools around her, and you feel the gravity of motherhood, the irresistible imperative that makes a body ignore its own breaking. Then the lead dog commits. He darts for the wounded shoulder, jaws open. It happens in a blink, her paw a golden blur, the air cracking as if torn. The leader squeals and plunges away, momentum shredding the pack's certainty. They falter, wheels coming off the machine. 2 more roars spill over the grass, not threats now, but verdicts. The dogs turn. Hunger has limits. They melt back into the savannah, disappearing one by one, their sneezes replaced by the fast panting of retreat. Relief climbs your spine, but it snags. The lioness's stance sags. She pivots toward the cubs, chuffs, then stumbles. Blood beads along the torn shoulder. She reaches the bolder cub and nuzzles, making that deep, coaxing rumble mothers use to settle young. The smaller cub crawls to her foreleg, presses close. The subadult watches, heaving, unsure whether to leave or stay. The danger you feared is over, but another quieter danger is gathering behind her eyes. She sways once, twice, and then her front legs bow. You and the rangers exchange a look you've traded before, the one that means action must replace awe. Because even victories can be edged with collapse, and in the hush after thunder, you hear it. Her breathing has gone wrong. You drop to a knee, measuring breath with hers. Inhale, stutter, exhale, a hitch like gravel. Malik raises a palm. Careful, keep low, no sudden lines toward the cubs. The subadult male rumbles a warning, tail whipping. He isn't yet a full sentinel, but today he claims the post. You avert. Your gaze and angle, half a step into the wind, letting your scent drift harmlessly aside. The lioness tries to stand. Pain shuts the circuit. She slumps again, head hanging. You notice the subtle swell along her belly. Lactation. The cubs nose her with those tiny motions you've watched 1,000 times. A repeated need of pause, a press to release milk. There's hardly any. Dehydration siphons everything. Milk production in lions depends on fluids, calories, and rest. 3 currencies drought steals first. You catch the white at her gums. Pale, not pink. Could be blood loss, could be parasites, could be both. Veiled facts loop in your head. Healthy lion heart rate 40-60 beats per minute at rest. Stress can triple that. Her chest flutters too fast. Tessa keys the radio. We need that mobile unit here yesterday. Dr. Imani crackles back, voice clipped but calm. 10 out. Prep the line. If she's ambulatory, we don't dart. If she's down, we move the cubs first. The subadult hears the radio and growls, sweeping a half circle between you and the family. Malik lowers his hands, fingers open. Easy, boy. We're here to keep what she fought for. A cloud skims the sun, the light softening. Heat loosens its grip. You use the lull to scan for the pride. Tracks feather the soil, older than the fight. Maybe the pride split overnight. Happens sometimes when prey scatters. Mothers stash cubs and range far, a misstep, a chase gone long, and distance eats the map. Remember when the cub first cried under the tree? That was the hinge, the moment the story folded and recreased into this shape. You can feel the crease deepen now. The lioness licks the bold cub's head, then noses the smaller one closer to her belly. The subadult edges back 2 paces, as if granting room. He glances toward the west, where the land tilts into kopjes and thorn. Is he listening for the pride's patriarchal thunder? Or judging the math, stay and defend, or scout and fetch? He chooses both badly, taking 3 uncertain steps and stopping. Youth is a messy algorithm. Dust spirals on the horizon, new motion, not dogs this time, the mobile unit. White with a green stripe, the truck approaches in a disciplined, unthreatening arc. Dr. Imani climbs down before the wheels fully stop. Sun hat, vials, calm eyes. She crouches low, speaks softly in that music she reserves for catastrophes. Her respiratory rate, Tessa gives the count. Wound location, Malik points. Cub's condition, you answer, dehydrated. 1 boulder, 1 fading. Imani's gaze flicks to the subadult. We'll need a distraction. No darts unless he charges. Sedatives will drop him in the wrong place, and we can't risk a dog counter-assault. She opens a kit, saline, antibiotics, broad-spectrum pain relief, an improvised cooling wrap. We buy her time first. Then if she stabilizes, we move 700 pounds of mother and hope the math holds. 700 pounds of hope. You swallow hard. Malik edges right with a rustle of grass, drawing the subadult's attention without making a line toward the cubs. Tessa mirrors left, her hands slow, empty, palms forward. Dr. Imani measures the wind again, then nods once. To you. Your job is simple and impossible. Be the second shadow, the gentle shape that keeps panic from blooming. The lioness lifts her head to taste the new scents. For 1 heartbeat her eyes find yours, and in them you read the only command that matters, not me, them. You inhale. On your next exhale, the plan begins. But plans tear easily, and even the best might not survive the next 5 minutes. The grass shivers with invisible threads, any one of which could snap. And just as you reach for the cooling wrap, the subadult's ears spear west. Something has changed in the far-off silence, something you can't yet name. A tremor travels the plain long before sound arrives, like ripples ahead of a boat. You know this pattern, large bodies moving in loose formation. You whisper it first, disbelieving, then say it aloud. The pride. Tessa doesn't turn, eyes locked on the lioness, but Malik risks a glance. Even Dr. Imani pauses, hand hovering above the syringe. The sub-adult's posture elongates, tail high, head up, and he answers with a throat-deep chuff that vibrates your ribs. They appear in pieces, a shape cresting a low rise, then 2 more, then a blur that condenses into lion. At least 5, no, 7 mothers and aunties. A heavy-shouldered male at the rear, mane dusk-dark, face weathered into a mask of old storms. Relief spikes the air, so sharp it almost hurts. But relief is not rescue. A returning pride guards cubs first and negotiates second. Your bodies, your truck, the strange medicine scent, these are questions with claws. Midway recap threads itself. Through your head, a quick braid for any mind that joined late. You found 2 stranded cubs. A painted dog pack closed in. Their mother fought them off but collapsed, torn and spent. Rangers arrived. A mobile vet team began a narrow dance with time. Now the pride is returning, not to applause, but to a tangle of risk. You tuck the recap away and shift your weight. Facts can steady a mind. Lionesses in a pride often sink breeding. Cubs are communally nursed. Allomothering spreads the burden and adds redundancy when drought or injury saps one mother's strength. If this pride follows that pattern, there are teats and warm bodies enough to keep these 2 alive. If you can keep panic from lighting the fuse. The lead lioness breaks from the group and lopes in, stopping 10 meters out to drink the scene with her eyes. She scents you, Tessa, Malik, the truck, the kit. Her gaze lands on the collapsed mother. A long exhale rattles from her mouth, more question than threat. The subadult cuts a half circle, placing himself vanguard to flank, almost brave, almost foolish. The male remains backline, head high, a silent mountain. Slowly, Dr. Imani breathes. She lowers the syringe, choosing a saline flush first. We present calm, we present purpose, we present a way for them to take over. She gestures to the cubs, then to the approaching lionesses, as if to say, we are delivery, not theft. The lead lioness advances, snout low. She touches noses with the collapsed mother, then grooms the fur along that shattered shoulder with quick, functional licks. The smaller cub peeps and tumbles toward her, and she accepts the weight against her chest without pause. The bolder cub hesitates, torn between duty and milk, then flops across the line as well. The new mother, an aunt perhaps, leans, braces, and lifts the smaller cub with her mouth the way experience learns to cradle without bruising. A low chorus of chuffs hums through the pride, vibration linking bodies into one organism. Imani meets your eye. We have a window. She tips the saline into the vein she's found, fingers feather light. The lioness barely flinches. Malik eases the cooling wrap beneath her neck, swapping in another soaked cloth for the shoulder to wick heat and mute pain. A second lioness steps forward to stand over the group, sentinel mode, ears clocking every insect and tremor. The male shifts one paw, a subtle claim, "This is ours now." You want to believe that this is the beginning of the end, the good kind of end. But nature rarely offers straight lines. The lioness's breathing steadies, but only just. And above the horizon, the heat shivers have thickened into something else, a grey bruise of weather that can hide sound and scent. Storms can split prides, drown tracks, scramble the tenuous truce between humans and wild. You watch the sky gather its fist and know the next trial is rolling toward you, shouldering the daylight aside. Thunder speaks from far away, more suggestion than sentence. The pride tightens by half instinct, half memory. Lions dislike rain not for wet so much as what it does to information. The way scent washes off like chalk. You glance at the lioness's bandage. The edges need to stay dry. Dr. Imani has already seen the same problem. "We can't move her yet," she says, eyes on the rising wind. "But if the storm breaks hard, we'll lose our scent boundary. And dogs sometimes try again when confusion reigns." Malik checks the perimeter, eyes ceaseless. "We need a windbreak and a dry patch." Tessa points to a shallow depression ringed by termite mounds. There, the mounds, hard as fired clay, can deflect runoff. The depression could pool just enough water to cool the earth without turning it to soup. The plan forms itself, the way competent teams let gravity do part of the work. With the pride's permission, negotiated second by second with body language, you construct a low shelter from tarps and brush, wide open on the pride-facing side, invisible from the plains. The sentinel lioness watches every move. The male flicks flies from his mane, feigning boredom the way only a king can. The aunt keeps the cubs close, letting their breath calm to sleep's rhythm. You slide the wrap beneath the wounded shoulder again, fresh and cool. The lioness breathes deeper. Each inhale feels like a bead on a rosary. Wildlife fact slides from memory. A lioness can be incapacitated by a deep puncture. Bacteria flood the wound, fever follows, and if the infection rides the lymph highways, sepsis can arrive in hours. Antibiotics now are not a luxury. They're the dam between trickle and flood. Imani administers the dose, then a measured pain reliever. "We walk the line," she whispers. Too much, she sleeps too deep. Too little, pain eats the healing. The first drops spatter, fat and warm. The world smells like iron and dust and something electric. The cubs stir, blink, yawn, and reach for the aunt's belly, finding milk with nosing that is more compass than search. Communal nursing is an old magic. You feel ancient gratitude shiver through you at the sight. A flicker at the fringe jerks your attention, eyes then gone. Not dogs, a jackal, opportunistic, testing the edges of a throne. The sentinel pins it with a stare that could peel bark. The jackal thinks better of playing God today. Lightning smears across the belly of the sky, thunder counting down the miles. The tarp chatters. The lioness flinches at one crack and then finds your face again, soft, heavy-lidded, almost curious. You have the strange certainty that she remembers your shape from the battlefield, how you bent your edges away from her cubs, how you kept your hands low. Maybe memory is too human a word. Maybe it's simply pattern recognition, the nervous system keeping score. The storm slides past rather than over, glancing a warning blow, shedding more promise than rain. Wind drops. Smell returns to the air like a choir, finding its note. The pride loosens, just a fraction. You let your breath follow. Then the radio coughs up a new problem. Hyenas on the North Ridge. 405. Malik's tone is neutral, but your blood goes cold. Hyenas read weakness with predatory literacy. They won't challenge a healthy pride outright, but a downed lioness, scattered scent cubs in transition. That's a recipe. You look to the ridge and see them crest like dark punctuation marks against the dimming afternoon. The sentinel lioness rises into a warning huff, and the male lifts his head for the first time with intent. You've won one battle, you've threaded a storm, but the night writes in a different ink. The hyenas begin that ghastly whoop that sounds like laughter only to those who have never heard despair. You square your shoulders because another line is forming and it points straight at you all. Dusk scumbles the world into charcoal and gold. The hyenas pace the ridge like wicked thoughts, counting, recalculating. You measure the pride's posture in reply. Two lionesses fan out, shoulder to shoulder. The male stands, heavy and deliberate, letting his silhouette do half the work. The aunt continues to nurse, ordinary tenderness in the mouth of danger. You slide another wrap beneath the wounded shoulder, noting that the heat there has cooled by a whisper. Whisper or miracle? Hard to tell at dusk. Hyenas are misunderstood, you remind yourself, a fact you hold even as your jaw tightens. Females lead their clans. Their bite force is a physics lesson. Their social intelligence rivals primates. Scavenger is not a slur, it's an ecology role. But even balanced truths have sharp edges tonight. The whoops rise, calling for consensus. A rally, not a charge, not yet. Malik murmurs into the radio for the lights, low, warm beams angling outward to paint the grass without stabbing eyes. Tessa sets a motion flare on the far side, not to frighten predators, you won't, but to own the geometry of approach. Dr. Imani checks the lioness's vitals again, hand light as rain. Respiration easing, she says. Hydration responding. If we keep the perimeter and the night quiet, she might stand by morning. You realize your shoulders have been locked since dawn. You release them, and the ache that rushes in nearly drops you. But there's no room for collapse in you tonight. You feed your focus small, true morsels. The slow metronome of the lioness's breath, the cub's milk snores, the aunt's rhythmic grooming, the male's minimal pivot toward the ridge with each new whoop, like a compass needle returning to north. The hyenas test the margin, one ghosting closer, then another. The sentinel's tail flicks. The male lets out a sound like a log, rolling in a deep hearth, low, resonant, absolutely final. The hyenas hesitate. Their calculus is brutal but not stupid. Risk, reward, cost. The whoops thin to uneasy murmurs. They withdraw 10 meters, then 20, then vanish like bad dreams at first light. You don't cheer. Out here, restraint keeps you invited to tomorrow. Instead, you tend the small, important tasks of survival. Cooling wraps rotated, fluids measured drop by drop, edges of the shelter tucked against a new breeze. Tessa hums under her breath, a tune without words. The cubs twitch in sleep, chasing something better than this day through their tiny nervous systems. Past midnight, the pride begins its soft chorus. Contact calls, little grumbles and sighs that pass information without drama. A second aunt noses the smaller cub, encouraging it to stretch its legs and return to warmth. The subadult, who was storm and shadow at noon, now sprawls like an exhausted teenager at the fringe, head on paws, eyes half-lidded but not off-duty. You lean back against a mound and watch the sky trade its last fire for velvet. Somewhere in that velvet, stars retrieve their ancient jobs, navigation, memory, blessing. You let yourself believe in morning. But belief is not a plan. You'll still need one when the sun lifts its blade again. As if to underscore the bargain, the lioness stirs. She gathers her legs beneath her chest, tries a half-rise, then settles back, panting, not panicked. Progress. Your heart knocks 3 grateful times. Easy, mother, you whisper without moving your lips. We're here. They're here. The night nods, withholding the fine print as always. And beyond the dark edge of the grass, something pads through silence, soft and deliberate, writing the first sentence of the next chapter. Dawn arrives like a held breath released. Gold filters through the acacias, making everything briefly holy. The hyenas have written themselves out of the story for now. In their place, flies, polite as bureaucrats, persistent as rain. The pride wakes in shifts. The male lumbers to a thermal patch and folds like a tent, still alert in that half-sleep lions mastered millennia ago. The aunt shakes dew from her whiskers and lets the cubs tangle around her legs. The wounded lioness opens her eyes and tests the morning. There's a new steadiness in them. Edges less glassy, pupils quieter. Dr. Imani tracks vitals, offers a measured saline bump, then retracts the line with a field magician's grace. "Let's give her a choice," she says. Choice is power for animals, just as for us. You and Malik nudge the tarp higher, so the open view widens to the horizon. Tessa eases the cooling wrap aside to invite the sun's gentle warmth into stiff muscle. The lioness lifts, trembles, holds. She shifts weight to her good foreleg and angles the bad one in. Her breath accelerates, then slows as she finds a rhythm. The pride's chorus begins, soft waves of encouragement. The aunt corrals the cubs at a respectful distance. The sub-adult slinks forward 2 steps, then halts, as if remembering yesterday's lesson at the edge of a mother's patience. You feel the moment gather and shine. She stands. It isn't pretty. It doesn't need to be. She's up, backline steady, head low. The torn shoulder protests, but the joint holds. You blink back wetness you'll call due later and watch her take 3 deliberate steps to the aunt. Inspect each cub nose to nose, and then bump her head once into yours. Not touch, not foolishness, but a tiny rebuke to fear. You don't move. You don't breathe. Sometimes gratitude looks like stillness. Science says lion-cub survival varies wildly with drought and conflict. In some seasons, half don't make it to a year. Today, for these 2, the odds tilt however slightly toward light. You embed the fact to cool your heart. Better odds are not certainty, but they are the seed of it. Imani confers with the team. We can't justify relocation now. She's mobile, the pride is cohesive, and stress is its own disease. Malik nods. We transition to watch and withdraw. The plan is a quiet choreography. Flatten human scent. Remove the shelter in sections so the pride reclaims the geometry. Leave a low-profile camera at a distance to monitor the wound. And back the truck out in a slow S-curve that never feels like a chase. You work your part, folding tarps between breaths, letting the sun reprint the plane's original page. The lioness lies beside the cubs, letting them wriggle into the familiar map of her body. She doesn't nurse yet, wise, conserving fluid, but she grooms them with a patience that makes time itself exhale. The male watches the North Ridge with new investment. The sub-adult chooses a termite mound throne and pretends it was his idea all along. When the last tarp comes down, the world looks almost as it did yesterday before the fight, before the storm almost. Only those who were here can see the stitches in the air where the day was torn and mended. You shoulder the folded canvas and feel the same stitches in your chest. You reach the truck and glance back. The lioness has closed her eyes, the cubs tucked tight. The aunt's ear twitches at a horsefly. The male swats half-heartedly at a beetle that should have chosen a different god. Quiet settles with the authority of a crown. You allow yourself a final inventory. Vitals steadier, wound cleaned, antibiotics coursing, family intact. And then, from the tall grass behind the pride, a shape rises, unexpected, uninvited, and moving with a careful hunger that spells trouble in every line. At first you think dog again, your nerves grabbing the nearest old fear. But the gait is wrong. This is Lena, solitary, shoulders seesawing under spotted hide. Leopard. It pauses at the seam of shadow and light. Head cocked, parade of thoughts flickering through those pale eyes. Cubs. Wounded adult, numerical disadvantage. Leopards abhor fuss. They thrive on clean theft. But opportunity is a persuasive god. The sentinel lioness clocks it before the rest, body inflating with that lion magic. Twice as big without moving an inch. The aunt bundles the cubs with her forelegs, low growl like gravel poured slow. The wounded lioness opens her eyes and stands, too soon, too sharp, but stands which matters, because stories like this are sometimes decided by posture alone. You and the team freeze, because this is not your scene to stage. You're extras now, living props with luck enough to witness. The leopard advances one measured step, tests the air, then another. The male lifts his head and offers the simplest answer to temptation. No, it's not a roar this time. It's that log-rolling sound again, old as fire. The leopard shifts its weight, dissatisfaction rippling along the spine, and greatness, yes, greatness, chooses dignity over drama. It melts back into the grass, taking its clean aesthetic with it. The pride resets. The lioness trembles but stays vertical, then sinks down in a controlled fold, ribs heaving with effort and triumph. You note the tremor for the chart, but for your own heart you note the second thing, the way the bolder cub inches out and plants a paw on her good foreleg. A small, declarative here. The smaller cub presses its face into her chest, implying the same word in softer grammar. Dr. Imani whispers, "We've reached the hinge," the part of the tail where rescue becomes recovery, where human hands let go of the rope and watch to see if the bridge holds. She scribbles final notes, tucks the pen away, and looks not at the lioness but at you. "Remember everything," she says. "The standing order of those who right the field, back to those who stay. The next time we will need today's map." You step into the truck as the sun lifts higher, burning yesterday's ghosts into silhouettes and then into nothing. The radios go quiet, not because there is nothing left to say, but because silence is the most faithful witness sometimes. The engine turns over. Malik guides the vehicle in that careful S-curve away from the heart of things, while Tessa keeps her eyes on the mirror, not to clutch, only to honor. Behind you, the pride settles into a geometry older than droughts, older than storms, older than your species' first fire. The lioness folds her body around the cubs the way the land folds around riverbeds, making room for water, making room for future. You can almost hear the first night after this one. A night of less fear, more milk, and stars that look like blessings again. You glance once more into the mirror and make yourself a promise you hope won't break, to return from a distance, to watch without crowding, to keep the corridors safe where you can, to remember that compassion must be both fierce and quiet. The promise sits heavy and good in your bones. But even as it settles, the radio grumbles awake one last time, with a report from a ranger at the far edge of the territory. Signs of snare lines near a poacher's known path. The story isn't over. Stories like this never are. The field keeps writing. The work keeps calling. And in the tall grass beyond the acacia, something else stirs. The heat loosens its hold on the day, and the savannah's breath lengthens into evening. The lioness lies with her cubs pressed close, the aunt a warm flank at their backs, the male a steady silhouette against the paling sky. Far off, thunder has given up its theatre, leaving only a ribbon of cool air that threads through the grass and settles the dust. You slow your voice, turn its edges soft, and let the cadence stretch the way shadows do at sunset. Peace isn't loud out here. It is the small, unremarkable sounds of survival. A cub's sleepy huff, the rasp of a mother's tongue, the tick of insects stitching night to day. Where panic lived this morning, quiet lives now. Where teeth flashed, eyelids droop. Where maps tore, the earth has smoothed the page. You let the picture hold, healed skin under sun-warmed fur, the pride circle intact, the plane exhaling. You think of how close failure walked beside you, and how many soft, stubborn choices stitched the hours together, standing still when it mattered, stepping in when it mattered more. The danger has passed, peace has returned, and the savannah rests once more. In the hush, you set the final image where it belongs. A horizon rinsed with amber, two cubs breathing evenly, a mother dreaming of tomorrow's shade. The camera pulls back, the wind lowers its voice, and the day closes gently around all that survived.